So you found the perfect print for the back of your quilt, but it doesn't come in wide back. If your quilt is wider than around 42 to 44 inches, you're going to have to put multiple pieces of fabric together for the back of your quilt. So this is how I like to match up the patterns when I'm using a print on the back of my quilt. And it is pretty easy. You're just going to need an iron, maybe a ruler, and some washable glue. So first, I have my 2 cuts of fabric that I need to sew together. You will want to be careful when you cut the fabrics so that you know that when you put them together, it's going to be the right size. And essentially what we're going to be doing is folding over one, matching up the print, basting it, and then sewing them together so that you can barely even tell it's 2 pieces of fabric on the back. I like to order a little bit extra than what the pattern is calling for when I do this, because sometimes where you cut the fabric, you're going to have a little bit of overhang on the top and or bottom. But anyway, what we're going to do here is take one of those 2 pieces and start folding it over wrong sides of the fabric together. So the right side of the fabric will be showing when you fold it over, and it doesn't matter how much you fold over. What matters is that the fold is consistent from one edge of the fabric to the other. So in this example, I'm only folding mine over by 1 inch, and I like to take a ruler and kind of run it along the edge and then press as I go. You will want to make sure that the press is nice and firm and pressed well, I guess, because we are going to use that press line later, because that is exactly where you're going to be sewing. So you're going to be sewing in this crease. So make sure you're pressing well and just go along the entire edge of just one of the 2 pieces that you're going to be putting together. So once you have pressed along that entire edge, it is time to get the Elmer's glue out. I like to use just the washable liquid glue, but you could use the stick instead. Totally up to you. Use whatever you have if you already have one or the other. Then we're going to bring the other piece of fabric back, and we're going to take that one and lay it down, and then we're going to take the folded edge and put it on top of the unfolded piece of fabric. Now this is the part where we're going to want to line things up. So like I mentioned earlier, you can be a little more strategic with your cut if you're like cutting a very long piece of yardage in half or whatever, so that the pieces will line up nicely. Mine are quite a bit off, but I found these 2 kind of swirly pieces that match up. So I'm going to go ahead and try to line those up that way. So I take the folded piece and place it on top of the other one until I find a good spot. And you might have to mess around with it a little bit, and it doesn't have to be perfect right away. We're going to kind of want a more exact match when we get the glue and the iron back out. And if you're not loving where it's matching up, you could redo your fold. Like say you have a character design or something on the back and you don't like the fold is like right in the middle of the character. You could definitely change that up if you want, but you know, I'm not too picky. So now that we are finally getting a match and it's starting to look pretty nice, what I do is I get the glue out and I put a tiny piece of glue underneath this folded fabric here. Then I'm going to take my iron and put the iron on top of it to quickly dry the glue. One of the main concerns people always have is, you know, is the glue going to wash out? Yes, I've never had an issue with the glue. Another issue people usually have is they're wondering if the glue is going to gum up their needle on their sewing machine, and I've never had that issue either. What we're doing with the iron is very quickly drying it, and the glue is just temporarily holding it in place so we can sew the pieces together and that the patterns match up really. So you'll see here the glue dried very quickly. After placing my iron on it, I'm able to lift it up and they are stuck together. A little goes a long way with the glue. You don't want too much because you'll actually have to like pull it apart afterwards then to press the seam open. Anyway, go along the entire length of these 2 pieces of fabric, matching them up as you go, then applying glue and pressing with the iron to baste the 2 pieces in place. I like to match it up first and then stick the glue underneath and then match it up again when I put it back down, and then finally put the iron on when I think things are looking good. Once you are done glue basting these two pieces of fabric together, what we're going to do is very carefully take the top piece of fabric and fold it back over on top of the other one, so the two largest pieces of fabric are right sides facing together. And you'll see I used a little bit too much glue here. This is what I was talking about, why you want to be maybe not so generous with the glue as you go. But anyway, we're going to open that up and we'll see that crease there where we originally folded that first piece of fabric over the length of the fabric. That is where we're going to sew, right in that crease there. So go ahead and open it up along the entire length of where you basted these two together, and then sew right on the crease, not a 1/4 inch away from the crease. You want to sew right in the crease you made, all the way from the top to the bottom. And I like to make sure that I lower my stitch length a little bit too, so that it is nice and secure. When you are done, this is what that'll look like. And I know, I'm sorry, it's really hard to see. I was kind of not showing it very well and I used white thread. But anyway, when you're done, you can open it up and check your work if you want before you trim it, or just trust the process like I do, and we're going to trim this back. Make sure you are trimming on the right side of your stitch line, so you are trimming back the excess little bit of selvage, not trimming on the other side and then undoing all of your work. I like to trim mine back to a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way from the top to the bottom, and then I like to press the seam, and then you can open it on up and you should be ready to go with two pieces of fabric where the pattern or the print lines up nicely, and you can finish your quilt.